going to continue some of those topics coming up today. But it was told to me yesterday by Weber, and I think Jay Harper was in on this conversation, that today is the this is the official start of summer, and it happens, around 4 o'clock today or something like that, if you want to get specific. One way or the other, it's hot, and it's getting hotter. Over the weekend, I don't treat you like children. I don't think you need to be treated like children. You understand that summer brings heat. You understand that from the day comes night, and out of the night comes day again. So, I mean, we're all grown-ups. So I'm not telling you what to wear. I'm not telling you how to act. I'm not telling you what to drink or what not to drink. You do you, okay? If you're grown. And if you are grown with children, then you probably need to impart some of that knowledge that you have onto them about how to act and react to the summertime heat. That said, it's like a couple of days, almost 100 degrees tomorrow and the next day. Or maybe Saturday and Sunday.
This is the first time in all of recorded history that we've had triple-digit temperatures, I think.
That's what I'm told. That's what some of the climate change folk from around the globe tell us, that never in the history of ever has any of this happened before. I got into this discussion online. It amazes me how people want to overcomplicate things sometimes.
Wait. Somebody on the internet was wrong?
Well, and believe it or not, I know this is gonna freak you out, Bell. By the way, hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
You miss me?
Yes, I don't like change.
Mm-hmm. You don't like quarters and stuff?
No, I don't like things not being the way they're normally supposed to be.
I hear you. Well, I missed you a little. Not a lot, but a little. I get into this discussion online, but it's amazing how people want to misrepresent your position on simple matters to try to prove themselves right. And someone said something about climate change. And I said, I believe in climate change. The only thing the climate doesn't do is not change. Or the only thing the climate consistently does is not change. In other words, the climate is constantly changing, day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, decade to decade, century to century, millennia to millennia. The climate is constantly changing. And there are a gajillion factors into that change. One of them potentially being man in a very minuscule way. But I don't for a moment believe that man is responsible solely or otherwise for some of the changes that's going on currently in the climate. Well, I didn't say all that. I just said, well, of course climate changes. The guarantee that I have for you is that the climate will continue to change. The reason that the leftist activists, these socialist activists that want to create the destruction of free market capitalism under the guise of climate change, the reason that they changed the language in the way that they changed the language is because no one can deny the basic premise that the climate changes. No rational, sane human being can deny that. Obviously, the climate changes. The question is and always was, what contribution does mankind have to that change, if any, and is that a bad or a good thing if we establish that there's any consequence due to humanity? That's the debate. There is no debate that climate changes. That's the reason they moved to that language. They used global cooling for a while. They used global warming for a while. They used global, climate emergency, climate crisis. Climate change fits them very well because for a while they went with global warming because it was consistently going up. They could not account for the dips in global temperature over the course of the last 25, 35, 45 years. And in that case, they decided to go ahead and change to climate change, something that no one can deny. So once these liberal activists feel like they've established that, they think they have you on your heels. I'm not giving up the language. So I get into this debate, and this person, you say you believe in climate change. What, you don't? What do you think we're arguing here? Anyway, me getting in an argument on social media. Odd. Speaking of social media, if you want to follow me, at Matt Murphy Show, I'm there always arguing with others. That is on the X machine. You can find me, Matt Murphy, or Matt Murphy Show on the Facebook. Matt Murphy's full. Just go over to Matt Murphy Show and click the thumbs up button. Do what you got to do to help me out. I need it. I need all the help I can get. It is episode 595 of our proceedings today. If you're watching on Super Talk TV, you'll notice the flowing locks are in presence. It is Locks for Trump Day 110. That's right. Starting on March 1st, I made a commitment that I will not cut my hair until we have a new president-elect, and I believe that man will be Donald J. Trump. 110 days afterwards, and this is what you got. Paul Winkler, I saw him in the hallway of the office here today. Did you see Paul?
Yeah, we talked for a little bit.
Did you hear what Paul said to me? When I walked up to him?
No.
You were busy.
Yeah.
I walk up and say, hello, Paul. Paul says, hello. And the first thing he says is, he looks at my hair. I see him looking at my head. And he goes, gosh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. That's what he said. That's our man, Paul Winkler.
Yeah. And
I said, thank you, Paul. It's not so bad. It'll get better once I'm able to put it up.
That is true.
And I'm not doing the man bun thing. I could do the man bun thing if I wanted to, but I'm not going
that odd phase between short and long is a little awkward, but then once it's long and you can ponytail it, you're in good shape.
Isn't it interesting how we are willing to, as grown men, accept a ponytail, but if you talk to me about a man bun, I ain't going there.
Well,
I mean, one's on the top of your head and one's on the back of your head, right? It's essentially the same thing.
Yeah, but one is less fruity.
Amen to that, brother. You need to mark that. Truer words you have never spoken on this radio show. All right, so Locks for Trump 110. We're on a variety of platforms for you. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, on the television side of things. More on that in a moment. You can find us on the FM radio dial from northern Alabama to southern Kentucky and all points in between on 99.7 FM. We're also on any streaming internet platform of your choosing. Just dial up WTN or Supertalk 99.7, and you can find us and take us wherever you go. And if you go near a television, look us up on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Supertalk TV is run in part by U.S. Pest. Thank you to J.K., Erica, and the rest of the gang at U.S. Pest for making these 3 hours possible on television. Look at this ugly mug. J.K.'s responsible. Also responsible, F&M Bank, for the robust chat that goes on exterior to the conversation that we're having on the radio. Episode 595 is running. Bell K is asked every day if he will participate on television, and he will not. He says no every day. But he does give us titles to our episodes, and today's episode is entitled,
Matt Murphy, Daypart Traitor, provides you with the drive's leftovers.
Well, that's hurtful.
Libertarian lunch, noon to 3. Leftovers.
Hurtful to Brian Wilson. I mean, it's like I'm passing him lunch.
We're doing an entire show of the stuff you couldn't get to yesterday.
Oh, actually, that's true. There's some truth in that because we got caught up in a conversation. And for you, Libertarian Lunchtime folk who are unable to participate, unable to call in, unable to offer your suggestions, your thoughts, your opinions on the membersnutrition.com super text line, there was a robust conversation regarding the 10 Commandments in our public education system. The state of Louisiana has now signed a bill into law requiring that every public classroom in the state of Louisiana, from kindergarten all the way to college, if it is a public classroom, whether it be a university or 6th grade or 4th grade or whatever it might be, they're required to post a poster-sized version of the 10 Commandments in the classroom. And their justification is an odd one that, instead of saying, look, we're not a Christian nation, but we're a nation of Christian people. I mean, I guess you could make that argument it wouldn't pass muster. It didn't in 1980 with the United States Supreme Court because, the First Amendment clearly establishes that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. While I don't believe that posting the 10 Commandments is necessarily the government establishing religion, the courts over time have encouraged that is demonstrating preference for one religion over another religion. My take on this is simple. Until we get the 10 Commandments back into our homes, until we get the 10 Commandments back into our hearts, no poster in any classroom is going to have any impact or effect. A child walking into an environment, oh, by the way, the teachers aren't allowed to reference it. They aren't allowed to talk about it necessarily. I guess they could do so one-on-one if need be. But I just don't believe that it is going to have the impact that some believe. Now, look, go for it, Louisiana, see what happens. That's all well and good. I went through this. I didn't mention this on yesterday's show on the drive, but I was a I was down at the Alabama Judicial Building in 2003 when Roy Moore brought in, former Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court when he became Chief Justice. Down there on Dexter Avenue, they have their judicial building where the Alabama Supreme Court, hears their cases, decides their cases, etc. And Roy Moore, unbeknownst to any of the other justices, brought in a huge monument to the Ten Commandments. He was known as the Ten Commandments judge. He had him in his courtroom. And he won a legal argument allowing them in the courtroom. He eventually lost a legal argument allowing them in the Alabama Judicial Building, partially because of some of the ways that he did what he did and partially because he did not confer with the rest of the justices. It's a long and sordid tale. So I've been through this discussion before, and my point has always been this, that we have a heart problem in the United States of America as much as a head problem, and I don't look to the state to solve those heart problems. I never have and I never will. My faith supersedes any force by government to demand that I do right or wrong, which is why I do say that there are some things that are legal in the United States of America that are certainly unethical and against my personal and spiritual beliefs. I would imagine you feel the same. That does not mean that they should be illegal necessarily. Secondarily, if we don't get God back into our hearts, if we don't get God back into our lives on a day-to-day basis, I don't expect that the state is going to do anything but screw that up. The state touches things and it turns to crap. Why would we want to do that with our religion? So it's a discussion point that I know is running around, and we'd love to talk about it if you so desire on the Libertarian Lunchtime Hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Donald Trump has a new angle regarding taxation that I think is sweeping the nation. I see it, and I saw it personally over the weekend. I saw an interaction with a patron of a business establishment in Nashville, Tennessee. Why? Because I was sitting right there at the table when it happened. A friend of mine engaged in this interaction with a server. He said, hey, if you want to stop taxation of your tips, you need to vote for Donald Trump. And the server's like, what? Huh? What? And she said something along the lines of, I've never been a real fan of Donald Trump. Well, if you are a fan of your money, you might want to reconsider where you're going when it comes to November. That said, Donald Trump is promoting this idea of eliminating taxation on tipped service. We'll talk about that today. We'll also talk about inclusive language in our cockpits across the United States of America, specifically aiming against words like cockpit or manpower and other words that some say are not exactly kosher. I don't know if that one's good either in today's society. We shall discuss. And then the mainstream media is all in on this cheap fake stuff. As expected, the White House vomits it, and pardon me for using this analogy, but it is appropriate. I know that we're in the lunchtime, but the White House, the Biden people just puke it up, and the media just eats it up. It's what they do. No matter how disgusting this garbage that's coming out of the White House might be, the White House spews it out, and the media just laps it up. So they spew out this nonsense about cheap fake. The first time I'd ever heard the terminology came from the White House, and then suddenly every media outlet in America, not Fox News, not Newsmax, not Talk Radio, but you know what I'm saying, all of the MSM, the legacy media, ABC, CBS, NBC, #NeverCNN, MSNBC, all of these media outlets are, cheap fakes, cheap fakes, cheap fakes, cheap fakes. The only cheap fake lives in the White House, and his name's Joe Biden. It's disgusting. Meantime, 1967 says, get the Pledge of Allegiance back into every public classroom. We don't do the Pledge of Allegiance anymore? I don't know. I'm away from that. Do we not do the Pledge of Allegiance anymore?
I remember doing it when I was in grade school, but I don't ever recall having done it in junior high or high school.
We did it over the, we talked about this yesterday. I've never remembered. I was born in 1973. You were born a couple of years before me. I never remember praying in school at all.
I don't either.
And I do remember early on in my schooling, the Pledge of Allegiance being done over the loudspeakers because, during like homeroom announcements, they would, a student would get the opportunity, they'd pick a different student every day, would get the opportunity to go to the principal's office and lead the school in the Pledge of Allegiance. And so we used to do that every day. But that was, like you say, that was kind of a grade school thing. That fades out of my memory by about 6th or 7th grade.
And I remember, I think it was in 4th grade, because I went to school in Hendersonville. I remember the principal during the announcements on Friday would always say, "Be sure to attend the church of your choice." Which you would never get away with.
No, you couldn't do that nowadays. Please, I mean, you would Can you imagine what that announcement would be like today?
That would be the cause for termination.
No, I'm just thinking, the caveats and the parentheses and all of the. And ladies and gentlemen, we remind you to have a great, safe, and wonderful weekend. And this Sunday, please attend a church of your choosing, to include the Christian faith and all of the Protestant religions, Catholicism, Muslim, Buddhism, Hindu. If you're a Taoist, we invite you to commune with nature. Or perhaps you believe in nothing. If you are an existential nihilist, we encourage you to do absolutely nothing.
I have this visual of these grade school kids just going, "School's over. I want to go home. Can we please leave?" I see my mom's car outside.
It gives me great pleasure thinking about a principal trying to explain existential nihilism to a 14-year-old.
Or even younger, like they're going to care. I just want to leave school.
I just am ready to go. One way or the other, we've got to go, and we've got a busy show for you today. I hope you participate one way or the other. You can give us a call at 615-737-9986. Always receiving those telephone calls. Love turning a monologue into a dialogue with you. And you can also hit us up in the membersnutrition.com super text line. Same number, 615-737-9986. It's the Murphy Show on Super Talk. You see what Bell does? He buries that into the context of the transition, thinking that I won't make comment on it because there's a little stinger behind the stupid Friday Eve thing. But I heard it, and I don't like you very much. I do like J.K. Brister and U.S. Pest, though. He brought us by some hats that do not fit. If you're wondering why Bell K will not come on television with us, it's because of that big old melon that he's got. And the U.S. Pest hat does not fit you. I cannot believe that it doesn't fit you.
You're telling no lies right now.
Well, thank you. But U.S. Pest, they not only have great swag, they've got great customer service, and they prove it on a day-to-day basis. They have full-service pest control to include monitoring and keeping out those communist bugs. And bugs are like little socialist commies, right? They want to come in. They want equality for all of the bugs, and they want to take your stuff and give it to their little bug friends. The spiders and the stink bugs and the ants and the ladybugs and the mice and the silverfish and the roaches and much, much more. They will give you that full-service pest control that you need. In all seriousness, folks, common Tennessee pests need to be eradicated from your home and from your property. Termites, brown recluse spiders, ticks, fire ants, and so much more. They offer termite protection. They'll give you crawl space services to help you out with the bugs down there, and they'll give you full-service protection in your home and in your yard. It all begins with the website, uspest.com. That's uspest.com. Or give them a call. Tell them Murphy sent you. 590-1260. 615-590-1260 for U.S. Pest.
It's looking like Israel and Hezbollah may be inching toward all-out war. And animal lovers, a warning, we're going to have a story that is quite disturbing from Jackson County, Tennessee. These stories coming up at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mr. J. Harper. I don't know. I might have to not listen to part of Jay's newscast because I get sensitive on those animal stories. It's even difficult for me to, and this is how much a put I am when it comes to animals. It is difficult for me to watch a story especially on the social media, on Facebook or the X machine, even if I know it has a good outcome, like dogs that get stuck in holes. Or there was a story about. What was she showing me? There was a story about dogs that chased a deer into a lake, and then the dogs got confused and didn't know how to get back to where they jumped into the lake. And so they were just paddling around, and then some fishermen came along and saw like these 4 or 5 dogs in the middle of a lake, like exhausted, almost dead. And they got them out of the lake, which is great, and they saved them, which is great. I can't watch it. Just can't watch the thing.
I saw this story on Twitter last night that apparently this kid had reported his father missing.
Mm-hmm.
And the cops, as in the process of investigating, decided that he was the killer. And the father was later found alive and fine. But during the interrogation, they were pressuring him so hard. And one of the tactics they used was they brought his black lab into the interrogation room. And said, well, say goodbye to your dog. We're going to have her euthanized as a stray.
I've seen this.
And the kid ends up confessing that he murdered his father.
Just to save his dog.
Just because they beat him down.
Right.
And the whole time his father was alive, and they were basically just mentally torturing him for the confession. And if you're using somebody's dog to do that, you're a horrible human being.
No, man, I don't care. I don't care how bad you want to get to whatever truth you think is out there. That's no good. That's no good. But we will listen to Jay Harper as best we can. He gave you fair warning, dog lovers, animal lovers. But we will listen in just a couple of minutes to the newscast on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, I met Super Texter Jason yesterday.
Had you never met Jason?
I never had.
I've seen Jason. Oh, that's because you don't go to any of the show events.
I'm not allowed.
That we have on the regular that Jason has attended. Oh, that's right. You didn't go to the Glock store open house where Jason was. You didn't go out to Nashville Palace where we saw Jason.
Not allowed.
And so you never go. Not true that he's not allowed, friends. He's been to station events too. He went to Bold Patriot one time when it was called Bold Patriot. It's now Baseline Brewing. And where else have you been? We got drunk on DeMunbrian one night. I remember that.
That was just me.
That was just us. That was
hanging out.
That was show bonding right at the beginning. Yeah. I can't believe that you had tequila on top of what we already drank after we went back to the hotel. But you say you did.
And you and I...
You looked like you did the next day, too.
Ooh, I felt like it, too. You and I have been to Zany's a couple... Zany's.
Yeah, we've been to Zany's.
But that wasn't, station stuff.
Saw D-Slay.
Yep.
By the way, I asked D-Slay when he's going to be not busy enough to come back on the show. And he said
never?
He said maybe never.
Maybe not. Yeah. Well, that's good
for him. He's only not been on the... He's not been on the show because of any reason other than he's so busy now with his new...
Which is good for him.
Which is a great thing for him. I'll take partial credit.
But to finish my Jason story, I actually met him here. He came up and Hand was giving him the quarter tour.
What?
He was here in the building.
Why did he? And he brought his little boy with him who was wearing a Savannah Banana shirt because they had been to the game. The kid said he loved it. Jason said, not so much.
So I was curious. Jason hit me up after he went Friday night and I went Saturday. I thought it was fine. I thought it was great. It was a little loud. It was a little frenetic. There was I felt like an old man because there was a little too much going on almost. But Jason's like, nah, not for me. And I wanted to get his assessment. I wanted to get his analysis of why he felt like it was not.
Well, he said getting into the place, it took him like 2 hours, he said, to get in there with traffic and the crowd and no assigned seating, apparently. It was just kind of a mad rush to get in.
Not my experience. Well, I had seats, so I had I had a place to go. But it was not my experience that it was that difficult to get in. We went to the parking garage, paid $10, and then we had to walk all the way around the stadium. They scanned the little bananas, scanned our tickets, and we were off and running. A banana scans your tickets.
A nanner scanner.
You take it from the man in the newsroom. That's exactly right. That's what they call them. All right, 12:31. Your call's coming up on climate change or anything else you want to talk about. I know that there's one on climate change holding on the line. Would love to talk to you at 615-737-9986. Libertarian Lunch in progress.
Good afternoon. It's 12:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Plenty of sun, 89 degrees. The weather forecast is on the way. Israel and Hezbollah appear to be inching towards perhaps all-out war. Last week, the sides exchanged more than 650 cross-border attacks over 3 days. The Iranian-backed terror group also making threats and making it clear it won't stop attacking Israel until there's an end to the Gaza war. In a fiery speech from Beirut, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah threatening what he called a war without rules against Israel, saying an invasion of the Galilee remains on the table if the fighting continues to escalate. And back here in Tennessee, a disturbing story as authorities just east of Nashville say a woman who was angry with her boyfriend knew what was going to happen, but she didn't care. She did it anyway. Here's Ken Weaver.
A case of animal cruelty about a 2-hour drive east of Nashville in Jackson County. News 2 says Marissa Wheeler is accused of intentionally placing her boyfriend's dog in a hot car after the two had argued. The boyfriend discovered the dog 7 hours later with the windows up and the car not running, the dog dead. Wheeler is accused of then trying to revive the dog by putting it in a 50-gallon tank of water. Authorities are charging her with aggravated animal cruelty. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and USS stands for United Structural Systems. And I am so proud of my friends at USS and what they've done for their community for now 30 years. Happy birthday to USS. And to celebrate their birthday, I'm pleased to tell you about a new addition. Well, not new. They've done mold remediation for a while, but they have a very special running right now until the month of June is done. $500 off your purchase of any RTE mold treatment. RTE stands for Remove, Treat, and Encap. They don't just treat the mold, they treat any type of growth that could be eating away at your floor joists. If you have moisture in your crawl space, you probably have mold. If you have mold in your crawl space, you have a problem because that can present itself in health issues. Let's get it taken care of by the RTE solution. Remove, treat, and encap. USS understands that it does no good to remove the mold if you don't take the proper steps to prevent it from coming back. They've seen it time after time over the last 30 years. So the company that you trust in your crawl space is now, you can trust them with mold treatment. Call today for your $500 off your purchase of any RTE mold treatment. 615-488-7855, 488-7855, or USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 1237. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Hope everybody's doing well. It's a hot one. Getting hotter. Oh, yeah. By afternoon, it will be hotter. Tonight, it will be cooler. Tomorrow, hotter still. And then Saturday and Sunday, almost 100 degrees. As I was telling the story at the beginning of the show, I know I got lost. I got squirrel. And so, yeah, 100-degree day. They expect that if it gets to 100 degrees, that will be the first time that it's been 100 degrees since last August, and only like the third time in the last 15 years or something like that. It just doesn't normally get to triple digits in Middle Tennessee. But, it's hot. It gets up into the high 90s. You know what to do. Speaking of climate change and climate always changing, Rod is next up. Hey, Rod.
Hey.
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm great. Hope you are.
Yeah, pretty good. Hey, one thing on this climate change and stuff, I don't believe in it either. But one argument I had with somebody tonight.
Hey, Rod. Hey, Rod.
Yes.
Rod.
Yes.
Are you speaking to me through a Wendy's drive-through speaker?
No.
It sure sounds like. Do you have the windows down?
No.
Okay.
Let me put you on. Take you off Bluetooth and put you on the.
I mean, I don't mean to cause any trouble. I just
No.
oh my goodness! See, that's so much. That's so much better.
I would rather have you understand me.
Yeah, I couldn't understand you, and that's so much better. Thank you, Rod, for that. Don't put yourself in any danger, but let us know what you're talking about here.
Okay, so argument I had with somebody about climate change. Talked about all this man-made stuff and everything else. But I asked him, it's like, okay, so how old is the Earth? And we established a number. It's like, okay, then how long has man been around? We established a number. I said, okay, put either one of those on a yardstick, and now figure out where you're getting your information is from and how much data you're actually looking at. And we're only looking at 120 years worth of recorded data in the United States. Other places, I have no idea how far back their information goes. But when you look at it on a scale like this, we're only looking at smidgen.
Yeah, it's incredibly and Rod, it got a little better, not a lot, but a little better. And I appreciate the call. I appreciate the effort, my friend. Thank you for the call today. I think I got the idea of it. Yeah, so it's a loaded question when you ask the question, how old is the Earth? Gosh, there are some folks that some folks would tell you, 6,000-7,000 years old? No, I don't want to take, no, I'm not taking calls on it, by the way. Don't. Well, I tell you what, if there's somebody that legit believes it, tell them to give me a call. I mean, there's some that believe that the Earth's only like, $7,000. And that's fine. Whatever. You can believe whatever you want. They think that God is trying to trick us. That's all these fossils and all of that scientific data, that's just a test to make sure that your faith is strong. So God's trying to trick us into going to hell, according to the 6,000-year-old Earth people. And no, the Earth's not 6,000 years old. It's much older than that. But y'all believe what you want to believe. That said, yeah, I mean, on the climate change front, is it a potential possibility that by a measure of thousandths of degrees or hundredths of degrees, that some certain man-made activity, whether it's burning of fossil fuels or whatever, has in a minuscule way contributed to an effective change within the parameters of what we understand the heat to be on Earth today? Yes, of course, that is a possibility. Is it man's contribution alone that is changing the heat on the planet? Of course not. More than man could ever attempt to muster. The sun has everything to do with how hot it is on Earth. The sun is the main contributor to global warming. The sun, if you want to turn the sun off for a while and get that global cooling that you've talked so much about, then maybe we could do some of that. But without delving too deeply into the entire concept, after the fall of communism and after the fall of the Soviet Union, this push on climate change really ramped up. Al Gore was a part of it, of course, in the aftermath of the 2005 hurricane season that saw Hurricanes Katrina and Rita and others devastate portions of the United States of America and other parts of the world. It was an unnaturally active hurricane season, and liberals used that to advance this so-called man-made climate change agenda. That they didn't even call climate change at the time. They called it global warming. I mean, Al Gore told us that there was a hockey stick effect, and after 2015, we would be past a period of no return. Al Gore, the champion, the godfather of climate change activism, told us that after 2015, there was no turning back. Well, if that's true, we've got to put climate change in a lockbox and make sure that we prevent our children and grandchildren from burning to a crisp like crispy critters at KFC. Yes. So if what he was saying to us was true then, this is one of those self-fulfilling prophecies, right? You scare the crap out of people. You convince them that their contribution is causing the earth to burn to a crisp, and you're going to kill all the animals, you're going to kill all the plant life, you're going to kill all the human beings. And that if you don't do things that's going to hurt you in the short term, it's going to kill you in the long term, or kill your family, or kill your children, or your grandchildren, or your great-grandchildren in the long term. And so they demand all of this money and all of these carbon credits and all of this government intervention, and they hamper the free markets. And I believe in basic free market regulation so that everybody plays on the same playing field. But some of these onerous rules and regulations and nonsense and, light bulb changes and no internal combustion engines and all of these other things, it's just nonsense. And when what they prophesize will happen doesn't happen, they either disappear, they're not challenged on it, or they explain it away by saying, well, we've done enough on carbon credits. We've done enough to limit the amount of fossil fuel belching into the atmosphere that we have staved it off for now. There's always an excuse with these people. Once again, Al Gore and no better an authority than AOC, Belkay's girlfriend, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said that the earth would burn to a crisp. I think her figure was like 2022 or something along those lines.
Yes, she'll be like 12 years left.
Oh, yeah. And none of it ever happens. And they just move right along as if there's nothing to see here. And when questioned on it, they always say, well, yes, we've done some of the hard work that staved off the worst of the worst, but the worst of the worst is coming. A lot of fear-mongering. Fear-mongering for the purposes of control. That's what leftists do. 1245 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Adam is in Columbia. Hello, Adam.
Hey, Matt, how are you today, sir?
Man, I'm great. I hope you are.
I am wonderful. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, gorgeous outside. Hot.
Hey, concerning the whole 7,000-year-old Earth theory. First off, I'm gonna preface this by saying I am a Christian. I believe in God. I believe the Bible. I believe every word that's in it. We talk about the fossil record and the Grand Canyon and the formation of that and all that. There is a wonderful documentary that can be found, I believe it's on Amazon, called Answers in Genesis, that actually goes step by step through each of the claims made by the Big Bang theorists and can explain it with empirical data in this documentary. So I would suggest anybody that does have a question on that to go and look up that documentary. I can't provide the empirical evidence right here, but it's all there in that documentary.
What is the name of it again?
I believe it's called Answers in Genesis, and it's tremendous. It actually touches on global warming, the Grand Canyon, dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are in the Bible. That's one thing that people will bring up, but it actually talks about leviathans, and I can't remember the other term in the Old Testament. So it's there.
I'll check it out. I appreciate the tip, Adam. Thank you.
think, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Answers in Genesis, Adam says, is a good documentary. For those that don't know, young Earth creationism or theorists, it's the belief, and I'm not here to knock it, but I mean, we can talk about it. I don't believe in it. I don't subscribe to it. That God created the earth sometime around 6, 7, 8,000 years ago. Those who believe in young earth creationism are obviously Christians or of the Jewish faith. They believe the literal Genesis account of the creation, and I guess Adam is reflecting on the fact that someone has done a documentary regarding a different take on Genesis. So, yeah, I mean, that's unintended to talk about today, but I'm happy to talk about anything. I'm like a rowboat, and I'm just floating around in Percy Priest Lake, and I don't have an oar. You are my oar, Brian. Brian, you are my oar. Hello, how are you?
Awesome. Thanks, dear. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
This is a good topic that I feel we need to talk about. Why is the Constitution seems like it's just going away in courts? Like they laugh at it, they just scoff at it. When you bring up how the state, has violated your constitutional given rights, and they just want to laugh that off and act like I'm the criminal, and so I was stopped at a sobriety checkpoint. And not, under the influence of anything. I was sober, but I was working, and I had to pass through where they were blocking. So they impeded my right to travel. They immediately pulled me out of my car after they got my license. They searched my person. I even locked my car because I could tell they were being tyrannical.
You could tell?
Over, Yeah, I could just feel. Yeah, I could just tell.
Mm-hmm.
So I locked my car and everything, and had my keys in my pocket. And they used handcuffs as a compliance tool to get into my pocket to take my keys and unlock my car and search through, just rummage through all my car. Ended up going to jail over it and everything.
Why'd you go to jail?
They possession of drug paraphernalia, as they said.
Did they have a dog on scene?
Absolutely not.
So they didn't have a drug dog?
No.
Why did they why did they tell you that they had suspicion enough to search your vehicle? What was the reasoning?
He said that he smelled the odor of marijuana, but I disagreed because, like I said, I was driving. They stopped me because of the way I looked, or the way I...
Wait a minute. I thought you said they stopped you at a sobriety checkpoint.
It was a sobriety checkpoint.
Okay, so wait a minute. Hold on. Let's. I don't mean to talk over you, but let's get the story straight. Did they stop you because they were stopping everyone at a sobriety checkpoint, or did they stop you because of the way you looked?
I am confident it was because of the way I looked. Because
were they stopping everyone at the? Were they stopping everyone at the sobriety checkpoint?
No.
Okay, I think law enforcement would probably disagree with you on that. Don't you?
They were walking up to every vehicle, but they were not stopping anyone else.
Well, right. If they walk up to a vehicle and they don't smell weed.
Smell weed?
Did they? You're telling me that there was no weed smell in your car?
I did not know of any.
Yeah, look, I've smoked weed before, man. You don't smell weed when you're smoking it.
There was a...
hold on, Brian. We'll talk about that. Brian, let's just talk me and you for a second, okay?
All right.
Let's just me and you talking.
I'm here.
I've smoked weed, okay?
Yeah.
You don't notice. You don't notice. So somebody that's not smoking weed, when they get in front of somebody that has been smoking weed, they smell the weed, man.
Okay. Well, he didn't administer any kind of sobriety test. He didn't care when it was smoked. He didn't. He just wanted to search through my stuff.
Was this in Tennessee? Was this in Tennessee?
Absolutely.
Well, it doesn't matter in the state of Tennessee. Look, you're talking to someone who advocates Brian, let me finish. You're talking to someone who on the regular advocates that weed should not be illegal, okay? So I'm not a foe, but I also understand the law in the state of Tennessee, And it doesn't matter when you smoked it. If they are aware of the presence of marijuana in your vehicle, then that's going to cause them to want to investigate further. And it doesn't matter when you smoked it in the state of Tennessee. It's illegal.
Okay, well, Commonwealth versus Barr says that it's not alone probable cause, just the odor of marijuana.
Well, and the courts have also determined, as much as I am frustrated by them, because I don't like sobriety checkpoints either, but they've also determined that sobriety checkpoints are legal in the state of Tennessee and around the United States of America, too. So
they are not in violation of the Fourth Amendment, right? Is that what you're telling me?
The courts have, right? Look, if you believe that, that's all well and good. The courts have regularly disagreed with you on it because you're on a public right of way, and the greater health of the general public outweighs your right not to be impeded in your travel. That's what the courts have decided. I'm just telling you what the courts have decided. I'm not telling you I agree with it or not, Brian. It sounds like you're just pissed off because you got arrested for having weed in your car. That's what it sounds like.
Okay, well, I mean, I got a video. You can check it out on YouTube if you got time.
Nah, I'm good. I'm fine with that. I don't need to check it out. I've seen too many of them. Brian, it's okay to be pissed off because you got caught with weed in your car. That's all right. It's okay. You'll be all right. I mean, are you going to be all right? You still got a job? You still got a car?
I will be all right. But, I mean, I bought that weed at the gas station where, like, the cop could have even observed me.
Well, you need to turn that gas station in, man. They're selling weed.
They have legal weed at the gas stations and the CBD shops and the vape shops now everywhere in Tennessee.
How long you smoked weed, Brian?
How long have I smoked weed?
Yeah.
Religiously.
And you smoke weed religiously, and you're getting some janky-ass weed from the gas station? Man, you need better connections. 615-737-9986. It's the Matt Murphy Show. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Real quickly, do you remember when you were a smoker?
Yeah.
And you'd have an authority figure smell it on you, and have you been smoking?
Oh, no.
What are you talking about? I don't smoke. And you look back on it now, and it's like, what an idiot I was.
I don't mean to be mean to Brian. Look, we could have a conversation one of these days about sobriety checkpoints and my disagreement. I'm a civil libertarian when it comes to them. I don't like them any more than you do. But at the same time, our society doesn't seem to have a problem with them. The general public doesn't have a problem with them. And because of that, they're not doing more to stop them. If we wanted to do more to stop sobriety checkpoints, we would demand of our General Assembly that they make sobriety checkpoints illegal in the state of Tennessee. But the general population agrees with the concept that you can protect the general health in this way. I got to go. It's 12:55 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I'm so proud to be associated with the good people of Men of Valor. Men of Valor have a big event coming up July 22nd. It is the second annual Rudy Kalis Celebrity Golf Classic. Taking place, as I mentioned, Monday, July 22nd. There's a 9 a.m. shotgun start. Registration and breakfast begins at 7:30. Now, folks, considering the people that are going to be a part of this event, considering the wonderful organization that it benefits, this thing is going to sell out. So, if you're looking to be a player in the Men of Valor Rudy Kalis Celebrity Golf Classic, I encourage you to go ahead to men-of-valor.org. That's www.men-of-valor.org for registration to support this event. Friends, the Golf Classic is hosted by longtime friend and volunteer champion Rudy Kalis, one of the nation's premier sportscasters, based right here in Tennessee for all of his career. Rudy will be joined by friends like Vince Gill, Derek Mason, Chad Matson, Logan Kane, Chris Sanders, George Plaster, and many, many more. And more to come. Now, these are names that have joined him in the past, and these are names that are going to be there this year as well. Come join us for a day of competitive fun, breakfast, lunch, silent auctions, contests, starstruck, and much, much more. And more importantly, testimonies and love stories about what God is doing and continues to do through the wonderful work of Men of Valor. So once again, it's men-of-valor.org. For more information, I'll see you there.
Good afternoon. It is 2 minutes past 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got plenty of sun, 92 degrees now on Music Row. We'll get to that scorching forecast here in just a bit. Alberto, the Atlantic hurricane season's first named storm, is now a tropical depression. It made landfall this morning on Mexico's Gulf Coast. In Corpus Christi, though, here's ABC's Melissa Adon.
Hit landfall there this morning. There is where the Mexican officials say 3 children died, 2 of them electrocuted, 1 drowning. Definitely showing the impacts and how devastating even a tropical storm can be.
Heading now to our West Coast, the FBI has raided a home owned by the mayor of Oakland, California. Here's Alex Stone.
FBI agents raided the home in Oakland owned by Mayor Sheng Tao. The FBI only saying it's conducting court-authorized law enforcement activity, but our sources tell ABC News it involves the FBI, IRS, and Postal Service. Unmarked law enforcement vehicles were around the home. Mayor Tao was supposed to be at an event on Thursday morning, but she canceled the appearance. She lives at the home with her boyfriend.
Now back here in Music City, a new report compares household bills in Nashville to the rest of the country. Ken Weaver has that story.
News 2 says finance service company Doxo says Nashvillians pay 16% more than the national average, 27% more than the state average for household bills. This report says a typical Nashville household pays $2,457 a month or $29,478 a year for the 10 most common bills. And Nashvillians are spending 37% of their income on household bills. Now, if you can stand it, Nashville Electric Service says one way to save money on those monthly electricity bills is to leave your thermostat near 78 degrees and use a fan during the summer. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
We talked to Dr. Wendy over at the Dr. Gill Center earlier in the week, and she had some wonderful advice for those of you experiencing pain anywhere on your body. We talked about my experience, right, where I had what I thought was stress-related pains in my upper neck and in my shoulders, emanating out to my, out my shoulder blades and in the back of my back, and I thought that it was stress-related. Well, it was actually a compression, a pinched nerve on the top of my neck. I didn't know anything about it. And Dr. Wendy, she, in my initial consultation, just like you will do when you make the call, we sat down, we talked about where it hurts and why it hurts and how badly it hurts. And then we went through x-rays, and then she did an examination, and then we got into the treatment phase. And through my treatment, through spinal decompression, I don't hurt in my neck anymore. I can move with freedom. I can play golf without fear of hurting my back. That's what it's all about, folks, getting back to life through the Dr. Gill Center for back, neck, and chronic pain. And let me tell you something. They get it done without having to pop pills, without having to put needles in your body, and without having to consider surgery. So I encourage you to get with the Dr. Gill Center to find out what they can do for you. The Dr. Gill Center's telephone number is 615-882-4838, 882-4838. The Dr. Gill Center in Franklin, worth the drive from anywhere within the sound of my voice. Tell them I sent you. Do you remember the name of the caller? I don't remember his name from last hour, from the Libertarian Lunchtime Hour. And I'm about to talk about him with love in my heart, and I can't remember his name.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. Did you notice? Are you on CNN?
I am not.
The potato is on CNN again.
Wait, when did the potato go back to CNN? Let me turn it over to hashtag Nick. I'm in violation of my my premise and my promise to all of you that I'll watch this garbage so you don't have to. Oh, there he is. Look, the potato. Hey, potato.
Did they rehire him?
No, it says he's a special correspondent and he works for Vanity Fair. That's such a perfect place for him. You know, he was teaching at Harvard. The potato, Brian Stelter.
What was he teaching? How to be a potato?
How to fail in the media?
How to look like a vegetable?
I mean, what a lump of crap that guy is.
Anyway,
an absolute lump of poop.
So our
do you remember what his name was?
No, I
don't know.
I remember.
Was it Grant?
I thought it was Brian.
Was it Brian? Maybe. I can't remember. I wish I could. I'm not trying to insult you. Stoner guy, would you call us back and tell us what your name is so I can give you a proper introduction to the 1 o'clock?
I can find out.
Can you, the 1 o'clock listeners, because I can't remember your name, and I'm sorry for that. Maybe I'm the one that's stoned. Anyway, Bev says it was Brian. So I'm going to go with Brian. I thought I would remember that because Brian's my brother's name. Jason says it was David.
Jason's probably yanking you.
I'll wait for Jason to respond to that in his own Jason way. You can respond to us, membersnutrition.com super text line, 615-737-9986. If you want to give us a call, 615-737-9986. That's the way to do it. Only a few rules on your callers. On the callers on this radio show, we really only have a couple of rules. One is only call once per day because that's the rule. Number two, don't read to me. And number three, don't be boring. And if you're not sure what being boring means, refer to rule number two. And then we'll be good. Because to be boring is a death sentence for talk radio hosts. One way or the other, I'd love to hear from you and love to hear from your telephone call, 615-737-9986. 2729 says, just call him Bob. No, he wasn't as mean as Bob. Bob was mean. Remember Bob? Tim's Ford Lake? Woo.
CIA agent.
Oh, yeah. Angry at me for having the audacity to talk about the FBI in a disparaging way. Anyway, so caller Brian, a lot of people. Wait, now 8654. Why are you asking that question? Are you upset at me for some reason? 9634 on the super. Or the Members Nutrition Super Text line says that you can call them either Cheech or Chong. So I'll call him Brian. Most of you remember Brian. I'm going to say it was Brian. Larry says it was Brian. 4564 says it was Brian from Dawn, so we're going to call him Brian. So Brian calls up. If you missed the Libertarian,
it was definitely Brian.
Okay, so Brian calls up and says, well, what about these sobriety checkpoints? They're illegal. And then we established that Brian is a pot smoker and they smelled weed in his car. And so they took him out of the car and they handcuffed him. And yeah, that's what's going to happen. And then he claimed that he'd been a religious. He smoked religiously for years, but he bought secondhand crap weed at the gas station that was legally sold in the state of Tennessee, which I don't know that if that's the case, then you're not doing it right, Brian. I'm just telling you. I'm not here to bag on you. I'm just telling you. So I don't have an appreciation for sobriety checkpoints either. I do believe that there is a line drawn in the sand from a societal standpoint as to what we're going to allow in our communities, in our state, and in our country with regard to our Fourth Amendment rights versus the right of the police, the obligation that the police have to keep the public safe on our roadways. So, believe it or not, Brian, I hope you're still listening. The Supreme Court has weighed in on this. Generally speaking, when a police officer stops your vehicle, it's considered a seizure of your vehicle. I was looking up. I want to read the exact language because I do not have it. I do not have it memorized. I was about to look up the exact language of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States because it says that unreasonable searches or seizures shall not be infringed upon. Yeah, the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States says the following, that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Okay? So the question is, what is the definition of unreasonable when it comes to the seizure of your vehicle? Because that's what officers are doing at a sobriety checkpoint. The Fourth Amendment says that we shall be free from unreasonable searches or seizures by the government. So in order to enforce this, the United States Supreme Court has held that under certain circumstances, a search or a seizure must be the result of a legally obtained warrant showing the probable cause of the search. Hey, we have eyewitness testimony indicating to us that Bell K has an illegal cobra in his home, and that illegal cobra is being kept as an emotional support pet. And because we have eyewitness testimony to this, we're going to go and we're going to get a warrant from a judge allowing us to go into the home specific for the purpose of searching for the cobra. That is a legally obtained warrant and a legal search. So other situations require different type of cause, and the court has long adopted what it calls a balancing test in this regard. The test that is balanced on sobriety checkpoints, and I've talked about this for years now. I sadly believe that our society, because of the DUIs and organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, because of the proliferation of DUIs in the 1970s and the deaths that these DUIs caused, that we swung the pendulum a little against civil liberties with regard to what we consider to be a reasonable seizure without a warrant. And communities have long believed, and Brian, if you disagree with this, you're well within your right as an American citizen to do so, and you can petition the government for a redress of your grievance, sir. But our community, our state, and this country has long believed, and the Supreme Court has held, as of 1990, that a sobriety checkpoint is not an unreasonable seizure of your property. So the logical conclusion would be that probable cause would be required before a vehicle can be stopped at any checkpoint. However, the courts said in Michigan v. Sitz, I looked it up during the break, 1990, I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. I don't want to claim that I did. Michigan v. Sitz in 1990, that based on the balance of civil liberties and freedom of movement, and based on the consideration of what is reasonable versus unreasonable, the court utilized the balancing test and weighed the government's interest in preventing harm from drunk drivers on our public roadways against the intrusion into a driver's privacy. It was not an easy decision to be made by the court. And frankly, if the court heard it again, they might make a different decision. It was a 5-4 decision. The court held that the balancing test weighed in favor of allowing the DUI checkpoints and that such a seizure was, quote, reasonable, therefore permissible under the Fourth Amendment. So they were there for a specific purpose, and it has to be a specific purpose. They can't set up a checkpoint just to check inside your car. They have to specifically check to determine whether or not you are impaired in some fashion while driving your vehicle. And guess what, Brian? When the cops stopped you, they determined you were, based on the smell coming out of your car. And how in the world did they ever smell that? Just wanted to clean that up. I'm not trying to pick on you, Brian, but if you're driving, I mean, how many times have y'all been driving around the loop or driving down 40? Almost on the regular, when I'm driving 40 eastbound toward Mount Juliet, when you get behind a vehicle that got that skunk weed coming out of it, I mean, how often does this happen to you? It happens all the time with me. So let's not pretend like we weren't doing something wrong. It is, by the way, Larry, you keep saying Brian Stelter. It's not Brian Stelter. It's Brian Stelter. Just a little correction for you. 118 Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Donald Trump wants no taxes on your tips. It's a huge idea, and I think we need to use this in our favor when we have dialogues, when we go out and about. We need younger people to consider Donald Trump as a viable option, and we need to explain to them why he's making real-world impact in their lives, especially for our waiters and waitresses who I would believe have a propensity to vote Biden just out of a sense of ignorance, or maybe I don't know what the factors might be involved in voting Biden. Maybe they're not considering Trump. Maybe they've just decided that Donald Trump's a bad guy, full of bad ideas. Well, this is a positive idea that we need to discuss, and I want to further the discussion coming up in just a moment on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Plus your telephone call, 615-737-9986. It's The Murphy Show on Supertalk. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy, and let's talk for a moment about Tennessee Men's Clinic. Gentlemen, listen up. Ladies, you can listen up, too, because if the man in your life has lost energy, vitality, drive, if you've noticed a decrease in bedroom activities, I know that that's a personal subject, and I'm not here to get into personal matters with you, but I am here to offer you some advice. With the Tennessee Men's Clinic, it is a low-cost way to get involved and to figure out what's going on. And that is most of the battle. If you figure out what's going on inside of your guy's body, or gentlemen, if you figure that out for yourself with one of the qualified urologists at Tennessee Men's Clinic, you are well on your way to solving the problem. And they have solutions at Tennessee Men's Clinic, a variety of solutions, from issues surrounding energy levels at the gym, or maybe you just don't feel it when it comes to doing yard work, or perhaps this has advanced to bedroom activity. It doesn't necessarily have to get there for you to go to Tennessee Men's Clinic and get the situation solved before it becomes even worse. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for more information. Go there. Do this. Most men complain because they didn't do it sooner. Isn't that nice? Let's get it done. Let's get it handled. And let's get it behind us. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, or call them. 2 locations, one in Cool Springs and the other in Midtown. 615-208-9090. 615-208-9090.
The White House today announcing it is shifting the priority of weapons deliveries to foreign countries. And a beloved actor with a 60-year career has passed away. We'll have those stories at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mr. Jay Harper. So I was answering a question on the Members Nutrition. You know, I regularly will respond and communicate with you during the breaks on the membersnutrition.com super text line. I can't get to everyone. There are too many of them. So I apologize if I don't get to you. It's kind of a catch as catch can kind of deal. So I don't try to play favorites. I just, I look, I observe, and that's what I do. Right?
If you want his attention or my attention, you just have to be like really funny like Jason, and that'll more than likely guarantee you get a response if you're extremely humorous.
It's funny. We have regulars. Back in the day, we used to have regular callers, and we still do to a certain degree have regular callers, Larry and some others, Calvin. But nowadays, we have regular super texters. Wendy will regularly super text us. Larry will regularly super text us. Jason will regularly super text us. So you can become a regular on the super text line and get a little bit of notoriety by dialing us up at 615-737-9986. So on the issue of no taxation on tips, 5718 says, if we're speaking of waiters and waitresses, most of them are not paying any income tax anyway because they're the lower tax bracket, unless they're a major city where they make enough money where they need to be contributing like the rest of us. How is the no tax on tips any different than student loan forgiveness? What constitutes service worker? Where does it end? Starbucks barista? OnlyFans girls? Prostitutes? Strippers? Pandering? Remove income tax for all or for none. Total nonsense. Writes 5718. Okay, so first off, to respond to that, yes, I would agree with you. If you want to talk about what we need to do, we need to move to a fair tax and eliminate the income tax altogether. I'm all a fan of it. I'm all about it. I preached it for years. I talk about it here regularly, and I am a big believer in the fair tax. The fair tax is a consumption-based tax. It would be a quote-unquote national sales tax of roughly about 25 to 27%. It would be revenue neutral, meaning the government would bring in roughly the same amount of money on a national sales tax, and you would eliminate every other tax in your life. Income tax, Social Security taxes, FICA taxes, all of the rest of them. Business taxes would go away completely. There would be no conversation about business or corporate taxes whatsoever. I could talk to you about the fair tax till the cows come home. I'm a huge believer in eliminating taxes on income and taxing consumption alone. First-time purchase consumption alone. So secondary purchases, off-market purchases, buying a used vehicle, that doesn't get taxed. Things only get taxed once. So I'm a big believer in that. But to speak directly to your question, how is this any different from student loan forgiveness? Student loans were created as a contract between the lender and the borrower. Oftentimes, there was an intermediary in the form of government or public education or an institution somewhere. But this was a contract between someone who loaned you the money and someone who promised to pay the money back. The government had nothing to do with it. The government is stepping in, interceding, and using taxpayer dollars to forgive those loans. So either the lender is screwed or the taxpayers are screwed. Someone's getting screwed in forgiving the loans of the borrower. Okay? The other is a fee that we call a tax enforced by the federal government, placed upon the individual unwillingly. It was not a contract willingly entered into, except to say that when we enter the workforce, we understand that we have to pay the government taxes. They're two completely different situations. In the meantime, Kirby is next up in Nashville. Hello, Kirb. How are you?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
Great.
First-time caller, long-time listener.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Welcome to Nashville for being here. Look forward to the locks. But anyways, just to preface, I actually got a ticket a little over a month ago. I was driving around. I had my phone in my hand, got pulled over, got a ticket. Totally understandable. I was guilty, paid it off, $103. Not a big deal. This past Saturday, I live in a small town, though I work in downtown. I had an event that I had to work, and I got back to the house, was leaving around midnight-ish or so, country roads. I had somebody just lights just right there in my rear view.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't like that at all, so I pulled over into a parking lot. I waited a few minutes. Sure enough, it actually was a police officer, and they were just right up on my butt. And I waited for a few cars to pass, and I was like, oh, no, everything should be fine now. I wasn't doing anything weird or suspicious, and so I pulled back out, headed back on the 24, heading towards Kentucky from Nashville. And sure enough, that cop was there, like less than a quarter of a mile, pulled out right behind me, waited for a clear spot, pulled me over, lights are flashing. I pulled over. Everything was very cordial. He was very nice, not getting on the cops. But he said that he pulled me over for suspicion, and I crossed over the white line. Now, this is also a really windy country road. I can understand that, but when he brought my license back to me, he said, so I understand that you had a ticket about a month ago related to you're on your phone. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, is that why you pulled over to make a phone call? And I said, yes, sir, I got a phone call from work. I didn't have a phone call from work, but I pulled over because he was just right up on my butt, and I could not drive with somebody with their bright lights just right there in my rear view.
Yeah, sure.
It was just unsafe driving. So I was just calling in as far as that profiling type stuff. I mean, that does happen, especially in like small country towns and late at night.
Yeah, and it's not right, and I get it, and you know, I've done stories in the past in Alabama, and I've not done so many of them in Tennessee because I don't know the towns in question so much. But there are towns that begin generating profits over stopping vehicles, profiling vehicles. So much so that there was a town in Alabama that started civil asset forfeiture with regard to some of the vehicles that they stopped. If they found large amounts of cash in the vehicle, they would secure that cash from the vehicle and demand that people then go to court to prove that it wasn't drug money. It was just so those things happen, and it's frustrating. Oh, yeah. There's no question. Did he when you told him that you had pulled over for a call? Did he was he cool with it? Did he let you go?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, it was very cordial. He was. I mean, he just. I mean, luckily, I did have that ticket. I imagine it would probably been. He would pull me out of the car or not pull me out of the car, but, ask me to,
sure,
exit the car and probably do a DUI check or something like that. But I did have that on my record. And so he cordially asked me, is that why you pulled over? And I flubbed it. And I said, yes, sir, that's why. But the reason I pulled over is he was riding my butt, and I can't drive at night with somebody just with their brights on.
Yeah, and at that time, and I feel you. I mean, because Kirby, if it were me, I would want to say that to the officer, but at the same time, I don't want to make the situation worse. But I want to say,
exactly.
Man, sir, I wish there were laws against people tailgating other people with their brights on. Don't you?
Right. Yeah. No, I didn't push the point. He was very cordial. I was very cordial. Everything was just very by the nines.
Yeah.
There can be some. And I drive an older vehicle, so I can understand that getting pulled over is like, oh, suspicion. There can be some profiling that happens.
No, I get it. I used to have my back in the day when I lived in Alabama, in Cahaba Heights, Alabama. It was years and years ago when I first got there, probably 03 or 04. I was driving an old beat up Jeep Grand Cherokee, and right adjacent to the community of Cahaba Heights was a suburb of Birmingham named Mountain Brook. Anybody that knows Birmingham, the tiny kingdom of Mountain Brook. Mountain Brook was a rich folks' place, and I used to cut through Mountain Brook to get to work. And I stopped cutting through Mountain Brook to get to work after the second time that I was stopped for no good reason. And, we noticed that you kind of went through a yellow light there. That was the first one. And the second time is, hey, we felt like you didn't make a full and complete stop at that stop sign. That was the second one. What are you doing around here? And I said, well, who? And I kind of got an attitude the second time. And I said, well, who's to say I don't live here? And he goes, well, nobody driving this type of car lives here. Uh-huh. Got stopped driving while poor, Bill. 1:33. Jay Harper's coming up with the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. It is 1:33. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got sunshine and 90 degrees. We'll have a full forecast in a couple of minutes. The White House today announcing it is shifting the priority of weapons delivered to foreign countries, putting Ukraine at the head of the line to help in its defense against the invasion from Russia. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
We're grateful to the nations that we've reached out to and have not only understood, but many of them have been fully supportive of this decision.
Kirby did go on to say that delivery delays will not impact arms shipments to Taiwan or Israel. Back here in the U.S., Donald Sutherland, the beloved actor who starred in scores of films from The Dirty Dozen, MASH, and Clute to Animal House, Ordinary People, and Pride and Prejudice, he has died. He won an Emmy for Citizen X and recently gained a new legion of younger fans as his portrayal of the president in the Hunger Games franchise.
Hope. It is the only thing stronger than fear.
Donald Sutherland died in Miami after a long illness. He was 88 years of age. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy, and allow me, if you will, to tell you about my good friends at Efficient Heating and Cooling. You know Jeff Eddy. I've talked to you about Jeff Eddy quite a bit. It can be hard to find someone that you trust when it comes to large home repairs. You can trust to Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Now, there are bigger heating and air conditioning companies out there. I understand that. They've got big overhead, too. You know, a big nut to cover, if you will, when it comes to covering all of those expenses. Jeff Eddy doesn't have all of those expenses. As a matter of fact, he passes savings along to you so much so that he never charges you overtime rates on any of his visits, no matter what time you call and no matter what time he comes, because he understands that your air conditioner doesn't know what time it is when it goes out. Now, this is the time of year with the hot conditions where an AC can go out, and if you've not done maintenance like I promised you should do, you need to get with Jeff Eddy and do that right now, and he never charges you over $125 to service your unit, no matter how many units you might have. Jeff Eddy, Efficient Heating and Cooling. Ask about free financing if it comes time and you need to replace. They are your Elite Pro partner with Rheem. And go to efficienthvac.net for more information. That's efficienthvac.net or 615-784-4424 for my man, Jeff Eddy and Efficient. Nashville Safe House is located on 4th Avenue South, and I want you to go down and see these safes for yourself. If you go down right now, it's 1:39 in the afternoon, and you start counting safes, I don't think you'll be done by 3 o'clock when we're done with the radio show, because that's how many safes they have. I mean, in the brands that you're looking for, whether it's Browning, Fort Knox, Liberty, Rhino, I mean, they have them all at, and on it goes. The brand names go on and on. The sizes go on and on. The shapes go on and on. The purpose. I mean, most of you want a gun safe, and gun safes remain sales tax free at Nashville Safe House. But if you're looking for a corporate safe, if you're looking for a jewelry safe, maybe a biometric to go by the bedside, or perhaps you're looking for a vault door to go in a business or your residence, they've got them at Nashville Safe House. Go see Mark and his team at Nashville Safe House. The time is right now to get a safe at Nashville Safe House. Great rebates going on for the summertime months. Ask them about it when you stop by Nashville Safe House. Online, NashvilleSafeHouse.com, or on the road, 4th Avenue South across from City Cemetery. Tell them Murphy sent you to Nashville Safe House. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. When I say the name Donald Sutherland, what movie comes to mind? Bell K, when I say Donald Sutherland, 2 movies come to mind for me. And I'm sure there are plenty more, but there are 2 that immediately come to mind for me. For you, Bell?
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
That's number 1 for me.
Very ending scene where he's pointing at the one.
Oh, my gosh, man. Oh, man.
I think I was probably 11 when that came out.
I'm right there with you.
Scared the living hell out of me.
Scared the bejesus out of me when I first saw that movie.
And I guess the other one, but it would have to be the Hunger Games, because I did watch and enjoy those a lot, but that's not what he's going to be known for.
I never watched the Hunger Games. He was in the Hunger Games?
Yeah, he played the president. He was basically the bad guy. He was the big bad.
For me, I just thought of a third one, and it was the best scene in the third one that I thought of. Harper, before I give up my other 2, outside of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which for me, an all-time top 10 moment in science fiction or horror movies, maybe even top 3, is that scene where she thinks she's found him, and Elizabeth walks up to him. What was his name?
He's been assimilated.
Yeah, but they've managed to avoid being assimilated, and she Matthew, and she smiles at him. When she smiles,
yeah, the look on his face. Oh, jeez.
Jay, any thoughts? Donald Sutherland?
Yeah, I really liked him in Kelly's Heroes. Mm-hmm. He played just kind of a hippie in that.
Yeah, Mad Dog.
In World War II, which was kind of unusual. And then probably the Dirty Dozen, I guess.
Dirty Dozen's a good one. I think Invasion of the Body Snatchers. For some reason, I just go to I go right to Animal House, where he's the professor in Animal House, and the guy, can I buy some weed from you? That one, and then and JFK. He is in that scene that he's in with JFK. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that scene where he's describing everything that went on in the 2 hours after John F. Kennedy was killed, and how swiftly these things went on. Why did they do this? Why did they do that? How did they know this? How was this headline here? It's Kevin Costner and Donald Sutherland sitting on a park bench, and it's about a 2 or 3 minute scene in the Oliver Stone film. That will make you a conspiracy theorist, to watch him draw these red lines between this event and that event and this event and that event, and why did this happen and how did they know? Great scene. Great actor, Donald Sutherland, dead at the age of 88. And sadly, when we talk about the good, we have to talk about the bad. And Donald Sutherland birthed Kiefer. So there you go.
I love Kiefer.
Do you?
Yeah. I loved the show 24. I just thought that
everybody loved 24. I didn't catch it at the beginning, and I felt like I couldn't come in on hour 12.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, also Donald Sutherland, one of the great voice actors.
Really?
The what is that juice? Simply.
He was the voice of the orange juice.
Yeah.
What?
The juices. Simply whatever. I can't think of the name of it.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, he was the voice actor in the commercial for those. It's a juice product.
Oh, the Simply Lemonade or Simply whatever.
I can't think of the name of it offhand, but aside from that, he also did a lot of other voice work.
Yeah, those actors whose names become there's a scientific psychological study out there about why, Like Ed Harris does voice work, a lot of voice work. There are some others, and I guess Donald Sutherland. Gene Hackman does. Like Ed Harris is Home Depot and Gene Hackman is Lowe's, and I might have those backwards. And there's a reason. You never see them, but you hear them, and one wonders, well, why would that company pay that amount of money? Because they're paying 10 times the amount of money that they could pay an unknown voice actor, and it's because we associate with those actors. Yeah. Whether we know who we're listening to or not, our bodies, our brains know that that's a familiar voice to us, and it makes us, want to go spend money at big box stores.
Kiefer actually owns a record label, and I worked with a company that was associated with that record label, and we were using Kiefer to get one of the artists onto radio and in for interviews and stuff like that. It's like, if you interview the artist, we'll let you talk to Kiefer about 24. And he was such an alcoholic that there was one night where I don't remember what city they were in, but Kiefer got so loaded that he left his backpack in the bar of the hotel, and it had the next week's script for 24 in it. Uh-oh. And he had to call the production office the next morning and say, the script's leaked. We might want to do some rewrites.
That's awesome. I can't find it. Where is it? I don't know.
And he actually referred to himself as a functioning alcoholic, too.
I kid about Kiefer Sutherland. I really don't have an opinion one way or the other on him, except to say that I refuse to accept that Lost Boys is a good movie. Okay? I just refuse.
Well, that's okay. I accept you being wrong all the time.
You think Lost Boys is a good movie?
I think it's phenomenal.
Have you watched it lately as a grown-up?
Yeah. Uh-huh. I think it's absolutely a teen movie. And you have to realize it was made in the 80s. So most of the effects are practical. Actually, all the effects are practical.
I remember.
I love the story.
The best moment that I can remember in my life associated with the Lost Boys is in the midst of COVID, in the throes. And you can go find this on my Facebook because I posted a minute or two of this video. I sat and watched a Spanish version of the Lost Boys where everybody's speaking in Spanish. It was great. It was a much superior version of the movie than the American version.
Were you stoned when you did this?
I probably was drinking a little brown water, and I was really, really bored because, COVID, and I wasn't seeing other human beings. I will tell you this, that despite it being such a crap movie, it has one of the finest last lines in cinema history. You remember it?
I don't know.
Grandpa. That's one thing about Santa.
Oh, yeah.
What is it, Santa Clara? Is that
Santa
the name
Clara,
of it?
yeah.
One thing about Santa Clara I never could stomach. All the damn vampires. And then boom, 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 people are strange. All right, 615-737-9986. Back to more important things like DUI checkpoints. Larry's in Clarksville. Hello, Larry.
How are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well. Larry, in the pantheon of callers of this radio show, you're right there on Mount Everest. Do you know that?
Well, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I mean, that's a compliment, pal.
Well, I listen every day. I've listened every day since you got here. But on a more serious point, while I kind of disagree with the DUI checkpoints, Matt, my great-nephew was hit by a very wealthy drunk driver outside of his dad's marina in Savannah 8 weeks ago. The guy registered .28. And bear with me, because it's still tough.
That's a lot, by the way.
Yeah, .28 is a whole lot.
That means 1/4 of 1% of your blood is alcohol. That's a lot.
Yeah. And then he tried to get away. People that witnessed it stopped him and held him. The Georgia State police officer didn't even fill out a complete report. Neither did the two officers that were there on scene. And it took an attorney to find out all this information. And then it was either 98 or 99, which you were probably 12 years old back then. my best friend, Wild Bill, who you have to meet one of these days, was downtown Nashville working.
What did you say his name was? Wild Bill?
Yes.
Okay.
He was downtown working, and a drunk driver pinned a pregnant woman against a light pole on Broadway. And when and the truck was still in gear, he got out and tried to take off running, and Wild Bill said, "Nope, you ain't," and held him till the cops got there. But this guy had 27 DUIs, Matt.
Oh, Lord.
And when they had to back the truck, when they backed the truck, away from the lady, she passed away. And that was the first case, I believe, in the United States where a special prosecutor prosecuted him for killing 2 people. So, I don't really agree with the DUI checkpoint thing, but, we have to have them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those deals, and Larry, thank you for the call, that on paper, I believe that it is a violation of our civil rights. But in reality, as a society, we've decided that we are going to do something about people endangering others on our roadways impaired by exterior crap that they put into their bodies. And if human beings can't manage themselves to the point that they don't get behind the wheel of a car while drunk or don't get behind the wheel of the car while whacked out of their minds on some other form of drugs, that we as a society are going to do something about it. And we're going to take every tool out of our arsenal, and we're going to use those tools to prevent law-abiding citizens from dying at the hands of drunk drivers. And I understand the civil libertarians that have frustrations. I have frustrations as well. I think it can be used and abused. But it is a tool that society has well accepted as a part of the tools that we're going to give to law enforcement to stop drunk driving. 52 after the hour on Super Talk. Dr. Stephen Poss in the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center has helped me gain back energy that I don't have to cover with caffeine. And, I was doing a lot of coffee. I was doing a lot of other energy drinks, too much. And I wanted to pull back on that. And part of the way that I did it was to investigate with Dr. Stephen Poss whether or not I was getting a good, restful night's sleep. I took a sleep study, and it was not the case. I thought I was fine. I thought I didn't have sleep apnea because I'm one of the people that did not snore that much, but I still had sleep apnea. And because of my mild to moderate condition and because of my CPAP intolerance, I went directly to Dr. Poss and I said, "Help me out, Doc." And Dr. Stephen Poss in the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center certainly did. It's an alternative to the people who have sleep apnea and can't wear a CPAP. You can eliminate or dramatically reduce snoring. That's going to help your partner out. Plus, it's going to help your health. To that end, they take BCBS, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, TRICARE for the military, all available at the Dr. Poss Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Centers in Brentwood and Murfreesboro. Go to the website today, find out more about this, and sleep better tonight. drposs.com, drposs.com. Dr. Poss can help you sleep better and help your health. drposs.com.
Good afternoon. We're about 30 seconds away from 2 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a partly sunny sky, 90 degrees, a full forecast in just a couple of minutes. Authorities this morning spent several hours surrounding a home in Clarksville amid an investigation as to what they believe was a domestic-related situation at the time. Police got there just before 9 o'clock and then set up a perimeter outside a residence on Timberline Way in Clarksville. The police at that time indicating there was no threat to residents in the immediate area or the neighborhood. Now, about an hour ago, officials described the incident as a domestic-related death investigation. They say that officers found 2 people with gunshot wounds when they finally were able to get in the home. One victim was pronounced dead at the scene. The other is in critical condition and was flown to an Asheville hospital via Lifelight. The story is, of course, still developing. No other information available at this time. The first presidential debate is just 1 week away. ABC's correspondent Karen Travers, she's got the latest on how President Biden is beginning to prepare.
President Biden heads to Camp David Thursday evening to begin his debate prep. He's expected to spend most of the coming days ahead of next week's showdown with Donald Trump, huddling with his senior advisors at the presidential retreat in Maryland, with no official events on his schedule. Campaign officials say at the debate the president will continue some of his more pointed attacks recently on Trump, focusing on issues like reproductive rights and the economy, and what Biden officials say are the former president's efforts to undermine the judicial system.
That is the latest news. We've got weather next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for The Glock Store. If you've not been down Elm Hill Pike, turned onto Air Lane Drive, and cruised over to the Glock Store, I think you're doing it wrong, particularly if you are a gun enthusiast or a believer in the Second Amendment. My friends at the Glock Store, if you've never visited, you need to, and if you visited, you know the deal, right? The Glock Store is the best in the business. If it has anything to do with the Glock, obviously, anything whatsoever, you can bet it's on the shelf at the Glock Store. And if it's not there, it's in the warehouse right there at the Glock Store property. When it comes to performance parts, for my own Glock, as a matter of fact, I use the Glock Store. I go to the source, the Glock Store, where the performance parts are installed for free while I wait. And of course, they have the incredible, incomparable Shoot 270 indoor shooting ranges. No lane range nonsense. At the Glock Store, you get a private room with a private instructor. It's you and an instructor and maybe a partner, a significant other. They do couple shoots as well to help get you up to speed with regard to training. I've been to a lot of indoor ranges. And once I found the Glock Store, I understood that they were doing it wrong and the Glock Store is doing it right. It's as simple as this. Glockstore.com or Shoot270.com, just minutes away from the airport, worth the drive from anywhere. Go by and see the crew at the Glock Store. You'll be happy you did. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Glock Store. How in the world did we get to 2 o'clock already? It's 2:04 to be precise, almost 2:05. We're about 15 seconds away from 2:05. I could wait and do my mark on my mark, but I'm not going to. It's the Matt Murphy Radio Show. Thank you for being with us. Whatever time you're able to give us, thank you so much, Music City. It's beautiful outside. It's a little bit warm. I'm looking at, let's see. Oh, I'm not looking at anything. My thermometer's gone down in here. Well, what the heck? Why am I looking at the NASDAQ? I don't want to look at the NASDAQ. I want to look at the temperature. What's the do you know what the temperature is right now, Bill? Do you have it in there? 86,
91.
91? Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. Getting up to about 98 tomorrow, 100 expected Saturday, 100 expected Sunday. Respond accordingly. You're grown people. You know what to do. All right, lots to get into, to include a conversation about Donald Trump's idea to not tax tips. Look, any tax breaks, I understand that there are some of you that are like, well, what about me? I'm not in the service industry. What about my taxation? Well, I understand that you want your taxes lowered as well. That said, I'm all about it, and I think it's a great idea. I think it's a fabulous idea that Donald Trump is presenting it, and I do think it perhaps will get a younger generation's attention as to who has their back and who does not. Sadly, I was talking with someone about this weekend. Well, it was the same group where the guy said to this, we went out to dinner, and at the business establishment, which I will not name, I would name them, were they doing some advertising on the show, but they're not. But it was like a sports bar environment. It was during the Tennessee Volunteers, the first game of the Tennessee Volunteers World Series run, and they're now in the championship game. And one of my compatriots there at the table said to the waitress, hey, we were paying our check, and he said, by the way, if you don't want taxes on your tips, vote Trump. And I forget exactly what she said, but it was something like, well, I'm not a really big Trump fan, but I'd never heard of that. And he goes, well, you might want to look into it. Might be a good idea. I think this is a great idea for all of us to do. Don't do it in a way that's going to be weird, but it's a wonderful way to introduce the topic to your waiter or your waitress and remind them that while the Democrats want to claim that they're for the little guy, the Democrats want you to believe that the younger generation is one and only vote, and that is Democrat or Biden. That does not have to be the way it is. And I don't believe for a moment that the Biden administration or Joe Biden himself gives one rip about waiters and waitresses. They care about money coming into Washington, D.C. and the growth of government. They care about pandering to special interest groups and organizations that they believe will get them elected. And you know what? As much as that means pandering to the 25-year-olds, and there are some liberals that are now saying, well, Donald Trump's doing the same thing. Donald Trump's just pandering to the 25-year-olds. Well, you know what? It's one thing to pander by stealing other people's money and using that money to pander, like loan forgiveness. It's completely a different thing to pander by saying, hey, we're going to let you keep more of your hard-earned dollars in your pocket. How about that? How about that? We've got 1 week to go before the presidential debate, which will be on CNN. Joe Biden has decided it's going to take him roughly a week to prepare for this debate. Yes, I wish there were more concessions. Yes, I wish there was a drug test. Obviously, we're going to observe Joe Biden and make sure that he doesn't have some sort of ear roach inside of him to feed him answers. I think that would confuse him more than anything. But sadly, the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, a man that is in charge of the greatest military on God's green earth, needs a week to prepare for a 90-minute conversation about the future of the United States of America. I think that in and of itself tells you everything you need to know about where he is mentally. Although I would warn against setting the bar so low that his ability to stand upright for 90 minutes is considered a win, which is sadly where we are nowadays. I do believe that they will. Here's what I think will happen next Thursday, okay? And by the by, I think we're going to be out next Thursday. I'm not sure quite yet. I don't think I can talk about it except to say that I think we are going to have a debate watch party. More on that. I know it's late in the game to announce this, but more on that as details become available. I want to say the word Murfreesboro. That's what I want to say, but I'm not allowed to. Scott writes in and says it's taking him a week to prep because he's already got the questions that he's going to be asked. It would not surprise me one bit if CNN endeavored to feed him the questions. However, the fear of getting caught will perhaps prevent them from doing said same. I do believe that they will have two allies on the stage with Joe Biden in the form of Jake Tapper and what's her name, Dana Bash. Just, look, whatever you do, don't edit the debate. There will be 2 moments of cutaway where they go to commercial. Other than that, it should be uninterrupted debating. And with that in mind, I wonder when Joe Biden stutters and stammers and fumbles and bumbles his way through answers, if hashtag never CNN will then be accused of cheap fakes. What a lapdog. I mean, there's a word that comes to mind when it comes to the leftist media supplementing them, or not supplementing themselves, acting in a subservient fashion to the Democrat administration. They
supplicating?
I think that's right. No, I'm thinking of a different word. I'm not sure if I should say the word or not. It begins with a C. But that's what they're acting like toward Joe Biden and the Biden administration. If you know, you know. I'm not going there. I'm trying to present a family show. But it would not surprise me if they tried to feed Biden the answers. And it does not surprise me one bit that the mainstream media, call them the legacy media, whatever you want, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, hashtag never CNN, they are all in on this cheap fake nonsense. The same garbage that they did to Donald Trump for 4.5 years. They don't like it when it comes back on them. And I would say to you that this is a lot more honest than the Trump stuff. So for 4 years we dealt with this, and I think it merits a conversation. Donald Trump would say something like, well, you know, you've got the bad guys, the racist over there, but other than that, you got good people on both sides debating this least. So he's talking about debating whether or not to remove the statue of Robert E. Lee in Charlottesville, Virginia. And obviously you have the sons of Confederate veterans, you have historians, you have people like me who would suggest that removing parts of American history is not the answer to advance the cause of telling the full story of American history. You're actually doing quite the opposite by removing monuments. It is better to explain to the American people today in 2024 why their forefathers saw fit to honor Robert E. Lee in the way that they did. What did he do? What didn't he do? Let's examine the full history, shall we? Instead, there are people that want to erase all of our history. And Donald Trump was noting that there are good people, the sons of the Confederate veterans and other ancestors of the Confederacy that want to continue to remember Robert E. Lee for what he was and what he represented outside of the issue of slavery and the Civil War, obviously, and also remember that level of the history too. What what about that is not correct? Of course he's right. Of course, in the full context of the clip, he makes clear that he's not talking about the white nationalists. He's not talking about the racists. How long? The mainstream media has yet to apologize for that. And these same gross organizations are going to yell at me about playing a clip of Joe Biden wandering around a stage, unable to get off a stage, and call that a cheap fake? You're a cheap fake, CNN. You're a cheap fake, ABC. You're a cheap fake, CBS. Joe Biden's a cheap fake. I have no interest in being lectured by these people. The usual suspects don't like it when their tactics in their minds are being used against them. And oh, by the way, friends, they know. And this is what makes it angering to me. I try not to get angry about this stuff because it's not worth that emotion. That emotion should be reserved for better. But it does anger me because they treat you, what do I say about the mainstream media, what I say about the leftist all the time? Remember these things. The best thing that we have going for us is that they treat you like you're dumb because they think you are. They think you're dumb. And they always overplay their hand. Let's hope that they overplay it a week from today. I think Donald Trump will do just fine. Joe Biden, probably not so much. But the bar should be higher than he dawdled onto stage, he stood on stage, he mumbled, he left stage. I can promise you, if he manages to do that, that will be considered a win by these same gross media organizations that are passing off this cheap, fake nonsense as real news. 16 minutes after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's Dave's turn in Hendersonville. Dave, thank you for your call. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great.
Good. Yeah. President Trump and this him for saying he's going to forgive taxes on tips. I don't see a thing wrong with that. You know, I keep hearing people say, "Oh, he's just pandering. He's just pandering." Well, to me, giving somebody a pass on a loan that they signed for college and not making them pay it back, that's pandering. People that work for tips, that's their money. They work for it. It's not pandering. That's just letting them keep what they work for.
Well, no, it's not pandering in the same way that announcing your tax policy for all of Americans isn't pandering. That's right. It's not pandering to suggest that you should keep the money that you earned.
Exactly. You work for it, you should be able to keep it.
Right.
I mean, all they're going to do is waste it anyway on shrimp, on treadmills, or something stupid like that.
I remember that video. That's a good one. I remember the little shrimpy running on the treadmill. No, Dave, you're exactly right. The difference is obvious for most reasonable, rational people. That in one case, Donald Trump's announcing, hey, I think if you're a hardworking waiter or waitress, given the concerns that people have about the future of restaurant and the restaurant industry, we want to alleviate some of the burden on you. We want to reward you for your hard work, and we don't think you should be taxed on those tips. Good for Donald Trump. You earn those tips, you shouldn't pay to the government for them. Conversely, when your loan is forgiven, if you agree to abide by the repayment of a $10,000 or $12,000 or $20,000 or $200,000 loan, when I agree to that repayment, I'm agreeing to pay back the lender, the person that loaned me the money. I have signed on the dotted line. Now, I understand that the government is involved on some level, especially when it comes to public universities, and they are encouraging some of these lenders to lend at low interest rates, et cetera, and they're guaranteeing some of the loans. And that's a different subject, whether or not they should be involved in any of that. But the bottom line is you entered into an agreement understanding that for this, you get that. That is a quid pro quo. The government is stepping in and saying either the lender doesn't get repaid or the taxpayers have to repay it. That is the very definition of pandering because you're trying to get to the vote by giving away freebies. Donald Trump's not giving away anything. He's allowing individuals to keep that which they earned. He is determining that the government should not seize that property from that individual, as opposed to preventing those that lended the money from getting the money back lended to them by offering up these exceptions or loopholes within the law when it comes to lending practices and loan forgiveness. One is pandering, the other's not. The distinction is clear. 20 minutes after the hour, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A domestic incident in Clarksville this morning turns deadly, and a beloved actor has passed away. We'll have those stories at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay Harper. 615-737-9986. Many of you offering your opinion on the news of the day, to include mortgages and interest rates and the dollar and monuments and taxes on tips, et cetera, et cetera. It is a veritable cornucopia. We are a buffet of topic selections on the Matt Murphy Show today. And I've not gotten into the Texas Children's Hospital story that I got into yesterday. I've not dived back into that story. Real quick, I want to say this, and I'll go to the phones, because I don't want the show to get away from me and not mention this. Right now, we have a border that is so porous and open that we're allowing these individual stories to take over our airwaves that are just despicable. And I say we, the Biden administration is allowing this to happen. Rachel Marin was raped, mother of 5 in Maryland. Alejandro Mayorkas could not see his way to calling her by name. We will. Lake and Riley murdered. This New York City kidnapping and rape of 13-year-olds where they had to rely on vigilante justice. Members of that community in New York City knew who this guy was who kidnapped and raped, and they had to lie in wait in order to get him apprehended. These are the types of evildoers that we allow into our country as we open up our doors and just tell anybody and everybody that wants to come in to come in. Sadly, other countries around the world have done this in the past, and they are reaping the results. Let me tell you a quick story from across the pond. There was a girl who has not been named for obvious reasons once I tell you the story. A 12-year-old girl in a suburb of Paris was at a park with her friend. She went to a park near her home in a suburb northwest of Paris. It's a suburb that I can't pronounce because I'm horrible and I'm not going to try. Suburb of Paris. This 12-year-old and a friend of hers Saturday went to a park, and 3 boys, 2 13-year-olds and a 12-year-old, approached her, where she was dragged into a shed and raped while they said some of the most anti-Semitic, disgusting things to her imaginable. A report that I read online said that one of her continuously referred to her as a Jew pig while he raped her. These are the types of things that we're seeing more and more in the United States of America. And for a long time, we looked across the pond and we suggested that maybe, and I know it's easy to pick on the French, but maybe, just maybe, you should relook at some of your loose immigration policies where you allow massive amounts of aliens from other countries with other cultures to descend upon yours and to bring their culture with them and demand that you acquiesce to their cultural ways. And what they bring with them, along with their quote-unquote culture that is quite different than yours, they bring with them their own prejudice, their own bigotry, their own racism, their own anti-Semitism. Reportedly, in addition to some of the slurs and anti-Semitic language used by the 13-year-old boys who were raping this 12-year-old, they also brought up Palestine. I don't know what's going to happen in this world sometimes when I read stories like this. Sometimes when I read, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I read stories like this and I want to go do something else. I understand why people want to ignore these things. Because sometimes it gets to you. That story got to me. The fear that had to be going through that 12-year-old little girl's heart and in her mind, and thank God she's still alive, and thank God the 13-year-olds are apprehended now, but it goes to a deeper subject about what are we importing into our country and what do we demand of those people that do come into our country. Ray, to answer your question, they will not tell us whether they're Muslim or not. Ray is asking if they were Muslim or if they were from that part of the world. The sources that I've seen online are suggesting that was the case. Yes. It has not been corroborated with any official source because the French authorities will not reveal the religious background or the ethnic background of the individual perpetrators for some reason. I suppose because they don't want us to know the real story of what's going on. Some of these individuals that are coming from Guatemala into New York City or from other parts of South America, sadly, they were not brought up with the same cultural values that we were brought up with. Are we importing that into our society? You damn right we are. And we better do something about it. And that's not anti-immigrant. That's pro-America. And that's pro-liberty. That's pro-American value. Tom is in Kentucky. Hey, Tom.
Hi, how you going?
Doing great, Tom. What's on your mind?
Trump, basically, I agree totally with the taxation of the waiters or waitresses, but the only thing that bothers me on that one aspect is if I'm a waiter, let's say in Vegas, and I'm getting $20 to $30 tips from the big shots, and I'm a waitress in Chattanooga, and I'm only getting $3 or $4, it seems to be that we need, before we go that far, have a system so it's equal. You know, just like we do regular taxes. If I pay $50,000 or if I pay $150,000, you see what I'm getting at?
I do not.
Okay.
All right, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Tom, because this call intrigues me. Because you sound very much like a socialist, Tom. So we're going to explore that a little bit further. Now, I could be reading you wrong, and I am fully aware of that. That's why I'm holding you over after Jay Harper's News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon, 2:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got sun and 92 degrees on Music Row. We'll get you that forecast here in just a bit. Authorities spent several hours surrounding a home in Clarksville this morning after police were dispatched to a home on Timberline Drive about a shooting in progress, which appeared to be a domestic-related situation. Well, just after 1 o'clock today, officials described the incident as a domestic-related death investigation, saying that officers found 2 people with gunshot wounds when they finally entered the home. One victim was pronounced dead at the scene. The other has been flown to a Nashville hospital by a life flight, and that person reportedly in critical condition. We'll continue to update this story as news is released. And celebrated actor Donald Sutherland has died at the age of 88.
From iconic roles in the movie MASH,
Ma'am, we are surgeons.
to films including Clute, The Dirty Dozen, Backdraft, and the original Hunger Games series playing President Snow.
Such bravery.
Donald Sutherland delighted audiences since the early 60s. His son Kiefer Sutherland posted the news of his father's death on social media, calling him one of the most important actors in the history of film. His last role was in last year's Paramount Plus miniseries Lawman, Bass Reeves.
May God have mercy on you.
Donald Sutherland, an Emmy winner and honorary Oscar winner, was 88.
That's Jason Nathanson reporting from Hollywood. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
I would describe Steve Abramowitz as a conservative advocacy podcast, but he's so much more than that. He always has an interesting guest on his podcast that appear regularly on heartlandjournal.com. Let's discuss. I encourage you to contact Steve to find out more about him by going to heartlandjournal.com. He has artists all the time on his show. He has authors on the show, cultural touchstone, entertainment figures, country music stars, and yes, political figures galore, including yours truly. I make an appearance once a month for Murphy's Law on the Heartland Journal podcast. Obviously, they've got a website associated with it where they present news and information important to Middle Tennessee and beyond, and I encourage you to go be a part of that at Heartland Journal. They used to be called Mill Creek View. They're now Heartland Journal. Steve Abramowitz and his team do a great job, and I encourage you to be a part of it. HeartlandJournal.com for more information and to check out the podcast, which can be found on Deezer, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, and all of your favorite podcast apps. It's HeartlandJournal.com. Just this week, Defense Systems came to Cumulus Nashville to give us a refresher in terms of our workplace prevention on violent situations potentially popping up. We get training at Cumulus Nashville, and I encourage you to do that in your workplace as well. If you're a decision maker in the workplace, perhaps you run a school, perhaps you are a decision maker at a church, a deacon or whatnot, you owe it to yourself to contact Brink Fiddler and see about the program that he provides to help train your staff, your individual employees, your group community in how to react in case something goes wrong. You know, the odds of you experiencing workplace violence, the odds of you experiencing gun violence are very, very low. And we want to make sure that you understand that. As much as you see it on the news, it's still a very unlikely possibility that this will happen. But if it does happen, what do you do? Workplace violence is something that does occur on a day-to-day basis. Active shooters happen on a regular basis. How do you respond? Do you react or do you respond to the threat around you? Everything that they do is customized to your facility. They do rapid response medical training, emergency and intruder action plans, and much, much more. Go to defensesystems.com to find out more. Call Brink and his team. That's defensesystems.com or 615-236-6484. 236-6484. Tell them I sent you. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you. More of your calls coming up. Is Tom still there out of Kentucky? I didn't want to insult Tom. I'm not trying to insult Tom. But he said he's talking about equality when it comes to earnings. And when you start talking about equality of earnings, then I start talking about socialism. But, Tom, maybe I'm misrepresenting or misunderstanding you, so I wanted to carry you over for a minute.
Okay, appreciate it.
All right, so if taxation is done by percentage and we're doing it in groups. Explain to me how you want to do it better to make it more fair.
Well, that I don't know. That's the reason why I said I'm having to pay taxes, you're having to pay taxes, and if somebody's doing the exact same job you're doing, and they're getting twice as much money that you're getting, then they ought to pay. I'm not saying twice as much taxes. I'm just saying that they ought to be paying some more taxes.
Well, taxes are paid based on earnings, right?
Correct.
So if I'm earning more money, if I'm earning twice as much money as you are earning, I'm going to pay more money in taxes, Tom.
Agreed. And that's the reason why I said that about the different locations and the different servants. You know,
hold on a second now. But someone working at a fine dining white tablecloth establishment, that server is not doing the same job as somebody serving at Red Lobster.
I don't know, because when I go to them, they're doing the same thing.
I do.
You know.
So.
But that's just my opinion on that, and I'm not going
to. The entirety of their tips are based on the amount, are based on a percentage. I mean, the way that we do it, the tip amounts at this 5-star dining experience is largely based on the amount of money that I'm paying for that experience. Would you not agree with that?
Well, you may, but I don't. I pay 10% regardless.
You pay 10%?
Yes.
Well, Tom.
Well, I only make $45,000 a year. Give me a break.
Well, then you probably shouldn't go to places where you know you need to tip if you're only going to pay 10%.
Well, I mean, that's better than nothing.
Well, no, you're right. Have you ever worked in customer service?
Oh, yes.
Have you worked as a waiter or a waitress?
And I've worked as more or less, I was a manager of a couple fast food restaurants.
Okay. But you think 10% is adequate?
For me making $45,000 a year, yes.
It's not about what you make.
And they're getting paid too, hopefully.
Yeah. So, all right, Tom. I'm not going to come after you. I'm not going to come after you. I think if you're paying 10% and you're doing that because you don't have the money to pay any additional, then I would encourage you to dine at places that do not require a waitress or a waiter. That's what I would encourage you.
Okay.
Because
10%
is garbage. That's a garbage tip.
Well,
And it doesn't. But I'm curious.
It's the way I was raised.
No, well, Tom, I'm not coming after you. I don't know you. I love you for what it's worth. But but I'm curious about this. So you pay 10% no matter what.
Yes.
So you don't increase.
If she forgets to bring me my drink for 20 minutes, okay, so be it. If she forgets to add the potatoes that I had asked for, so be it. I mean, I just pay the flat 10%, and regardless one or the other, because they're working too. I mean, everybody has bad days and good days.
But you don't reward superior customer service.
I don't know what superior customer service is, I guess.
I don't know what to tell you, Tom. I don't know where you're heading.
Well, what I really wanted to get at is the idea, the things that Trump is saying about what he wants to do. I am hoping that he will come out and explain what he's going to do. Okay, like for instance, the border. I think the border should be shut down, and I agree with everybody. And they're talking about these so-called concentration camps to send them out. Well, to me, he ought to figure out who he's going to have as Homeland Security, sit down and figure out a plan and kind of tell us a little bit of that plan so that we're in total 100% agreement and we can shut these other people up.
Well, I think we have a pretty good idea of what he's going to do when it comes to the border security issue, because he tried to do it his first term. And Tom, I'm going to let you go there. He tried to do it his first term, and he was stymied by the Democrats for 2.5 years. And finally, he got a workaround going, and he started building the wall, right? He's going to build a 30-foot high wall that goes 10 feet into the ground to prevent, as best we can, individuals from breaching our system and illegally entering the United States of America. I think it's pretty clear. I think of all of the issues before us in the United States of America, I think it's pretty clear what Donald Trump's going to do. I have a difficult time talking to you about this because I have a difficult time getting over the whole tip conversation. Now, to be fair, there are some people on the Super Talk membersnutrition.com super text line that are defending Tom, saying that if the Lord takes 10%, then it's good enough for waiters and waitresses. Well, the Lord doesn't have to regularly deal with people demanding more damn cheese rolls and being jerks. And I mean, I joke. That's a joke. That's a joke, folks. Don't take it too seriously. 7166 says, telling the guy his tip is garbage is not cool, Matt Murphy. I didn't tell the guy he would. Look, I'm friends with Tom. Tom and I are cool. I didn't attack. I didn't go after Tom. I went after Tom's garbage tip. I've worked in public service. I've worked in customer service. Have you? I mean, you inspire people to be better by rewarding them when they are better. Tom's method of tipping is garbage. That you're going to tip 10% no matter what, what you're going to get is the crappiest customer service on the face of the earth. If everybody did what Tom did, you're at 10. 10% should be for me, 15% is the floor, and that is the floor. And it goes up from there. I'm a big tipper, and I don't expect people to tip the way that I do. But I want to make a moment. My goal, when I was at the Cracker Barrel a few weeks ago, and I had an experience with a woman. It was a work-related thing, and I had an experience with a woman that I just am inspired to tip well on occasion, to try to remind people that are in that industry to keep plowing forward, to keep doing their best, to keep providing the level of customer service that I just experienced, because there are good people in the world, not like Tom, who tips 10% every time, no matter what.
If you're going to be a cheap tipper, you probably don't want to go back to the same place a lot, because at some point, there's going to be some health regulations broken when it comes to your meal. And when you're a really good tipper and those servers see you coming in, they're going to fight to be able to get to you and give you the best possible service.
There's no question. I mean, 7024 intrigues me. He says, dude, a tip is a tip. What does it matter if he pays 10% if that's what he can afford? And he said, well, the way that you're talking to him, you're using the way you tip as a yardstick for everyone else. Yes, I've worked as a waiter and lived on tips. If somebody tips you, you should be grateful. So you're telling me, 7024, I just want to talk to you honestly. As you're listening to this show and you're communicating on the members, so you're telling me when you worked as a waiter, when someone got up and left you no tip, that didn't bother you? Because you're grateful if someone tips you at all. So it doesn't bother you if you get nothing. You provided excellent customer service. They get up, they leave you nothing. They pay their bill, they walk out the door. You're saying you're not bothered by that at all. I don't believe you if you say that you're not bothered by that.
If the meal is so expensive that an accompanying tip is a deal breaker for you, that's not a place you should be eating at if you can't afford it.
I mean, it is what it is, and I understand that tip culture has gotten out of control. I get it. But 10% no matter what? That just seems weird. Like, why don't you just not tip at all, no matter what? Why are you giving 10% at all? If that's the case. 4295 says the restaurant owners should pay their employees. It's not my obligation. You know what? I've heard this argument. Guess what? You're going to pay one way or the other. If the restaurant owner starts paying his employees $15 an hour instead of the $3 or whatever that they get, or $2.15 or whatever it is, I don't know exactly the amount of money. Guess what the restaurant owner of 4295 is going to do? They're going to increase the Bell. You want to go?
They're going to start giving their stuff away for free.
That's right. They're just going to suck it up, and they're not going to earn as much money. And they're if they are managers or owners of a business that where they have stockholders, those stockholders just aren't going to get the dividend checks that they used to get because they're going to absorb that cost. They're not going to pass it along to the customer at all.
Everybody's a capitalist till it's time to pay your bill, and then the other guy should be doing it.
The restaurant owner, you're going to pay one way or the other, right? Or you order at a kiosk and you get it at a window and you go sit down and you bus your own table, and that's fine too. I just find this idea that a 10% tip rate is okay it's just. And I get it. I know that people are upset about tips right now because everybody's got that little tip screen. And by the way, don't feel compelled to hit that little tip screen every time they ask you for a tip. You don't have to do it. You can move on from it. You just use your own judgment as to whether or not they've done something that merits a tip. That's the way that goes. And that's a tip from Matt Murphy to you. It's 2:50 on Super Talk.
Boom, 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 boom.
I was just discussing one of my tip strategies at fancier places as it gets up into the hundreds of dollars is you remove the alcohol from the total and then you tip at the same percentage as you would other places, and you can get to a similar type amount without having to pay exorbitant amounts of money for a $100 bottle of wine. Anyway, it's 57 after the hour. Matt Murphy winding down. Brian Wilson just cranking up. Hello, Mr. Wilson. How are you? Glad to have you back.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Thank you for filling in yesterday while I went to have a dermatologist carve on my face for a few hours. It was a lovely day off.
Oh, no. Hey, everything turned out okay?
Yeah, everything's great. It's just, one of those things that you have to do every once in a while when you get to be my age and you have bad Irish skin. So, it's all good. Everything turned out exceptionally well, except that I'm bandaged up and I have a little bit of a black eye from the surgery. So, I'm not going to be appearing on Super Talk TV today. They're going to put up a freeze frame because I don't want to shove that down the audience. They don't want to be looking at this.
Cabana wife doesn't want the accusations. I understand that.
She said, "What are you going to tell people about your black eye?" So I'm going to tell them it's your fault. You just got fed up with me, and one day you said, "That's enough, Wilson." No. I'm absolutely kidding. It was just one of those things where they had to do a little surgery right near the eye.
Sure.
And you end up with a black eye. That's one of the things about it. But I feel great, and it turned out really well.
Well, I'm certain you're loaded for bear for today's show. What's on the docket?
Well, we keep talking about, are the Democrats truly going to stay with Biden all the way through the process, or are they going to look for an out if things don't go well, let's say at this first debate, which is scheduled, next week? And the Daily Mail folks seem to think they have the scenario under which Biden might be replaced. I'm going to start with that. We got a lot of other stuff to talk about, including during the first hour of our show, ladies and gentlemen, summer will officially arrive.
That's true.
And
you get
exactly
to welcome it
3:51. We will probably stop and commemorate that moment.
Watch the thermometer go up 5 degrees right at 3:51 this afternoon on Brian Wilson and The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Well, Wilson's coming up in just a second, right after Jay Harper delivers some headlines for us, and he's doing that right now. A First Amendment Freestyle Friday edition starts tomorrow at high noon on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Until then, have a great afternoon, folks. Enjoy the drive. Hug your loved ones. We'll talk to you tomorrow. So long, everybody.